For all of the nuclear age, Americans, and in fact people throughout the free world, have been fortunate to have a remarkable group of scientists and engineers that have worked tirelessly to keep us free. Throughout that time, one of those men has been especially outstanding, whether the subject was creating technology for power and deterrence, or for civil defense, or for strategic defense, or for anything that the free people of the world needed to keep them free in the nuclear age. For over half a century, Edward Teller has been tirelessly at work for us and has been very effective. He's been called many things, and I don't know whether he likes any of those slogans, but he's really the father of nuclear defense, and probably many other ways that could be better expressed. But in any case, we're very fortunate tonight that he's in charge of our program for the banquet, both the awards and the speech. Dr. Teller.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will make a real attempt to be brief and leave a lot of time for any question whatsoever on any subject at all. I want to answer a few questions before they are asked. Partly because there are areas where you as doctors can make a positive contribution, and partly just because of the interest in a subject. I'll be happy to answer even difficult questions, how to survive. But now, simply, with the Soviet Union having vanished, I think we have opportunities of all kinds, including the very important and difficult job of cooperation for peace. The real defense issue, I'll be glad to answer questions on it, but instead I will just try to tell you about positive aspects of nuclear energy. There is a very general fear of radioactivity. And I want specifically to talk to you about it because you, as medical people, are not only in a position to understand it, but in a position where your statements will be believed if you are careful about them, and we now know enough to make interesting statements. Specifically, I want to mention a book by a Japanese. His name is Sohei Kondo, K-O-N-D-O. And he has written up his lifelong observations, data, on the effects of radiation, very particularly in causing cancer. The title of the book is On the Health Effects of Low-Level Radiation. And in the introduction, Kondo says, in clear and simple terms, the proportionality between dose and the effect of getting cancer, is a myth. Not supported by the book, in which 25% of the printed material is just listing of data and data and data from Hiroshima and Nagasaki to Chernobyl, or to any place where people have been, any occasion where people have been exposed to radiation. There is even an explanation, a discussion, not of the point that a little radiation is good for you, which is not proved by the data, although slightly indicated. It is just to show that a positive effect of radiation is not more of an absurdity than inoculation. A little radiation may stimulate the proteins, the means by which cancer is resisted. He quotes the point that after Chernobyl, while Western Europe did not get any dangerous amount of radiation, far from it, more than 100,000 additional women got abortions in the next few months in fear of what the radiation may have done to their offspring. I think, no matter what we think about abortion, to take an important action of this kind on the basis of completely unmotivated fear is not the right thing. So this is one point I would like to mention to you. Obviously, 1,000 R units will kill you. You know that all of us get per year about 1/3 of an R. We know that the cancer that one might get from radiation does not occur until years later. If, as a proportionality theory may suggest, you have 1 chance in 1,000 additional chance of getting cancer because of radiation, to get that statistically proven, you have to look at 1 million people for years, and that has not been done. And as I say, the raw data indicate that a little radiation is good for you. Now, we have heard in today's talks the interesting and effective point that one may forbid things in the name of caution. As long as you don't know what damage radiation does, forbid it. All right. If you don't know whether it does anything bad or anything good, then even the cautionary prohibition loses all reason for being made. So this is one suggestion I would like to make. Look at the book, look at the data, and see whether you have ways and means, individually or collectively, to get rid of this unreasoning fear of even a little radiation. The other point I want to mention is what to do with the products of radiation. What to do with the materials that become available by dismantling weapons. The only alternative that is seriously considered at the moment is to collect them at one place, put them good and deep in the earth, hope never to see it again. I believe there is a better way and a safer way. It is better to use them. Radiation can be used for a number of important things, and the interest in that has unfortunately decreased from the relatively high level that this research had in the immediate years following 1945. Let me remind you the great success that radiation had in the treatment of thyroid cancer. By using radioactive iodine in compounds that seek the thyroid gland, you can remove the gland safely and painlessly, but more than that, if you catch cancer and the thyroid has already metastasized and the cancer is not too old, then the metastatic pieces that occur all over in the body still attract the radioactive iodine, and therefore cancer of the thyroid has been cured in many, many cases. Research toward similar things I can recommend, and I will even go further. One has used greater amounts of radioactivity to clean up sludge. One might use it in conservation of food, and it does affect, radiation affects the food less than freezing or heating. Getting rid of harmful components by radiation is the right thing. Already in medicine, it has been amply used in diagnosis, and just to be a little more appropriate for this gathering, I want to tell you a personal experience I had with this. You know, 10 years ago, I had surgery, a bypass. I'm now artificial from head to foot, my eye, my heart, my intestines, my foot. I'm at least 20% artificial. And I want to come back to you in 50 more years when I will be 80% artificial, with a hopeful exception. With a hopeful exception of my brain, except that Lowell Wood promised to fortify my memory by putting a big memory unit, electronic, into my belly, where I can recall whatever I want with great promptness and accuracy. Well, I was improved, and then visiting Washington, friend who was there at the operation got hold of me, dragged me to Georgetown University, a lot of radioactivity into me. How much radioactivity goes into my heart? They injected it into the blood. I passed, not with the highest color, and went to the White House, have lunch, to whom I told all this. There we sit, and the guard comes running. Who of you gentlemen has brought in some radioactivity? So my friend, the science advisor, raises his eyebrows and says to the guard, "Don't you know, this is the radioactive Dr. Teller." So that much I wanted to tell you. Now this for the serious matter. For your interest and hopefully amusement, I want to add a few words of what we have been discussing in all seriousness about asteroids, comets, whatever, bumping into a planet, like the one that quite recently bumped into Jupiter. Jupiter, being bigger, presents at least a 10,000 more probable target. On Earth, the last one of these big events, not terribly big, was in 1908. I was then 5 months old. It was the Tunguska meteorite, 150 feet across exploded at an altitude of maybe 8 miles, yield 10 megatons. The forest flattened for 1,000 square miles. Practically nobody was around. 1 or 2 people might have been hurt. Had it happened in this little place, we couldn't have a meeting here. Had it happened in Washington, then all the terrible things we fortunately did not hear about in the meetings would have happened at one stroke, due to a hammer that comes from above. The point is that we now have gone into space, have worked on technology. We could find out about these objects. We could know when they would come and prevent their arrival. Of the big ones that could make worldwide trouble, there should be about 2,000 around in orbits that might intersect the Earth at some time, or something may come from way out rapidly. Of small ones, local effects, like the Tunguska meteorite, that might incidentally cause more damage, more probable damage, by falling into the ocean and making a tidal wave called a tsunami. Of those, there are a few million. And an arrival of one of those in your lifetime has a few percent probability. The point is, with good observation, we can find out and predict. The main point, and I don't want to go into detail, the main point is not even better telescopes. The main point is that we don't have enough astronomers to look at the plates and to see the very few objects that change their position and thereby make it obvious that they are close by small objects. We have now CCDs, the charge coupled devices, where instead of a photographic plate, the data are received by little electric connections, pixels, and transmitted directly to computers. And the computers then can do what even diligent astronomers will never be able to do: sort out the many millions of pictures that have to be taken and find all these objects. If they come from far away, even then you might observe them early and find a year before their arrival, or at least 6 months, if we know what to do. I might tell you that my good friend Lowell Wood here acted here quite out of character, writing a paper, even signing my name to it, which I was glad to accept, not only because it was a good idea and his name was on it, but his wife Suki's name was on it too. So of course I liked the company. The paper said you don't probably even need nuclear explosions. All you do is send up knives that cut up the planet into the asteroid, into little 3-foot pieces, which then will burn up in the atmosphere. I think that would work, unless they are very big and we don't have enough knives. Then we might use a nuclear explosive and perhaps deflect the object enough so that it will not collide with Earth. Now, don't believe any of that. If you want to do it, you want to do it internationally, and you must convince everybody. You don't believe what I said, unless it's demonstrated. But the point is, it can be demonstrated, because such dangerous objects approach the Earth more or less as close as the moon once a year. Then, after such an object has passed the Earth, you send out your knives or your nuclear explosive and see what it does to the object, depending whether that object was like a comet, loosely bound, or like an iron meteorite, strongly bound. You can get the experience how to change the nature by cutting them up, or, if not possible, change the orbit. Here is something where we know that a very big event has occurred from the geologic evidence 65 million years ago. My good friend Luis Alvarez, and particularly his son, has seen that between two big geologic ages, the Mesozoic and Cenozoic, there was a meteor impact of an object that was bigger than the highest mountain, more than 10 miles across. Not far south from the United States. A crater more than 100 miles in diameter, quite a bit more. What it did, we know more or less. Not only terrible local effects, but enough dust raised to exclude the sun, probably for years, and the sunlight, decreasing the food, decreasing the growth of vegetables, starving the animals that ate them, and in the end, starting the animals that ate the herbivores. Our ancestors survived because they were very small, insignificant, and modest. In the meantime, we are not as big as the dinosaurs, but I also hope we are a little more clever. And if something similar should arrive, for which in your lifetime there is one chance in a million, then we might prevent the end of the human race, which otherwise would be unavoidable. This afternoon, I heard a bit of bad news. And we must know that bad news, we must understand it, and we must try and know how to prevent it. I am trying to balance it slightly after dinner with good news. Please ask me, good news, bad news, I'll give you the most cheerful answer to everything I hear that I can possibly think of. Thank you very much. Sir?
This is a question for either you or Dr. Wood. What do you mean by sending out knives to cut up an asteroid?
Lowell. Tungsten knives.
Very briefly, the asteroids that would strike the Earth come in with energy densities which in round numbers are 1,000 to 100,000 times the energy density of high explosives. They come at such tremendous speeds that even very modest sized objects that, as Professor Teller said, that are only 150 feet across, can nonetheless carry enormous amounts of energy. As he said, 10 million tons of TNT. By sending up objects, engineered objects, into their paths, you can convert a very small fraction of that energy that they bring in into energy to cut them up, literally slice them into cubes, if you will, of fractured rock. Even, as he said, in the case of nickel iron, of fractured steel. And so it's kind of a cosmic jujitsu, if you will. You are using the enormous energy of these objects against themselves, not to vaporize them, although they have many times the energy required to vaporize them in their kinetic energy, but to slice them into pieces small enough that the Earth's atmosphere can then do the job that it has done very splendidly for millions of years of defending us against small objects. The Earth's atmosphere is not thick enough to defend us against the really big ones, like Professor Tuttle referred to. If they're 10 miles across, the atmosphere is swept aside like it is even there. But if they're only a few feet across, or even a few tens of feet in many cases, the atmosphere will defend us. And so it is using our existing defenses effectively and slicing the large objects up into many, many small ones so that those defenses can be effective that we're proposing to do. They function as knives. They function as giant cheese knives in the sky, if you will, but they're a little bit more complex than that in their operation.
So you have invented not only the brilliant pebble, but the smart scimitar.
Yes. Thank you. Do we have to cite you every time we use your splendid designation? We will have to give the proper quote whenever we talk about the scimitars. Any other question?
On radiation hormesis, how do we counteract recent National Cancer Institute statement that 10% of all lung cancer is caused by radon, using the linear no-threshold hypothesis, which goes far beyond their data point? How do we counteract that pseudoscience?
I don't know. You are the doctors. I have heard that the main trouble is smoking, and that possibly smoking and radiation together are not good for you. But the precise status of this thing, I do not know. I believe, incidentally, that even that statement, which you just made, even if you smoke, the amount of radiation that might affect you has to be several R units, 10 or 30. All the data I have seen, up to tripling the dose that all of us get, up to 1 R unit, were improving the health under all conditions. So you make the statement more detailed and more precise, and then I think I should be listening to you. Yes?
I have a question. When an argument against nuclear reactors that I often hear is that they produce more radioactivity than has to be collected in mined to run them. Is that actually true? And is the net production, do you produce more radioactivity after burning up uranium or whatever it is, or plutonium to produce energy? Or is it less in the end? It's just a different form of it. Is that what you see my question?
The functioning of the reactor will certainly produce more radioactivity in the short run. In the long run, it depends on how long you wait. But the general point is this: the radioactivity produced should be used, or if it is not used and kept under control. There is another way that I want to explain to you. The way to make people feel really safe is to put the reactors 300 feet underground. Cool them, let us say, by helium. Have the production, the generation of electricity above ground, but arrange it so that the reactor should function. And now I will postulate something that might sound peculiar. Arrange it so that the reactor will work in a foolproof manner for 30 years. And it will be foolproof because we exclude the fool. We make the reactor work without any human interference. The principle is that you use a reactor, such reactors already exist, that work better at low temperatures than at high temperatures. If you use the energy and send back the coolant, real cool, you get a lot of energy. You do not use the energy and send back the coolant warm, you get less energy. You don't cool at all, and the reactor shuts itself down, and then you might, and that is not a quite easy question, might leave the activity where it is, having put it originally into a place where the radioactivity is never likely to get to the surface. Collecting it all in one point won't make it any safer. This is one possibility by which you could provide nuclear energy, even to countries where the expert handling of the reactor is not easy, or where you suspect that a dictator could misuse it. If you put the reactor underground and exclude the possibility, except by very difficult technical means, ever to dig it up again, then you have about as safe a situation as might even be accepted by the people. Any other question?
I'm going to show my ignorance. Where does one get radioactive fuel in the first place? Is it down underground, some depth, or?
The fuel, the conventional fuel for these reactors is uranium. It may be enriched uranium, enriched in a particularly good isotope, uranium-235. That then can be changed into plutonium, and that in turn can be used in the reactors. Now all of this is probably going to last for quite a bit more than a century, probably much more, but that we are not sure of. There is a second fuel of which there is enough for many millennia, more than that even, maybe for 1 billion years. That is thorium. You can use much more of it, and there is more of it to begin with.
And where is it found?
Everywhere. Good places to look for it are China, the United States, Brazil, and India. We know of very plentiful deposits. We know of people on the southwest shore of India that live on top of thorium deposits and get much more radiation from it for generations than the maximum permitted dose, and they have not yet been hurt at all in a noticeable manner by getting not permitted radiation. There is a lot of that, and one might deploy it in such a way that it does not work by itself. It has to be activated by uranium. But a little uranium can activate 30 times as much, 100 times as much thorium. And so you have here deposits of which there will be plenty at a low price for practically any length of time. Thank you for the question. Yes.
Edward, what are the national laboratories doing to come to closure on eliminating low-level mixed waste? And number two, in light of your suggestion to put nuclear reactors deep underground, how does that fare with the fact that we haven't been able to really come to closure on how we get rid of high-level radioactive waste in tunnels and geologic formations?
It is your job, not mine. People want us to get rid of radioactivity which is not harmful. There has been a report on the laboratories, and I will tell you, the cleanup, not all of which goes on radioactivity, but a lot of it, the cleanup altogether, that is supposed to be done by the Department of Energy, amounts to 1/3 of the budget of DOE, 5 billion out of 15. We heard today a beautiful talk about ozone, about the unnecessary amount of money spent on preventing the disappearance of ozone. At least as bad is the situation of the unnecessary cleanup. Now, recently, there has been a publication and a beautiful fight in connection with one of my friends from Los Alamos by the name of Charlie Bowman. Have you heard of him?
Yes.
Good. How many of you have followed the Charlie Bowman controversy? Well, let me tell you. Charlie is working on a reactor to burn up the unwanted material, which I think is quite a nice possibility. He has devised a very safe reactor in which to burn them up. The reactor would produce some energy, and its particular feature is that it won't work by itself. It works only if an accelerator injects neutrons into it. Without that, it comes up 5% short of reproducing its neutrons. That makes it safer. The injection of the neutrons costs energy, but the reactor produces enough to inject its own energy. Nobody wants to buy it. Thereupon Bowman made an argument that is highly controversial. I am not quite sure whether I like it, but I sort of like it. Bowman says, to take all this material and take it to one place in Nevada cannot help, makes matters only worse, because a lot of material together is apt in some geologic change somehow to become more radioactive. Get to a configuration that, like a very ancient deposit in Africa, becomes naturally radioactive. And this occurring deep underground, where energy production cannot relieve itself easily by expansion, and where energy production can give rise to mixing and to making the reactivity even stronger, that only can give rise to dangers. I'm not sure that that was wise, but it's in the literature now. The one thing that the opponents of nuclear energy have more or less accepted is to put things into Nevada. Now Charlie Bowman said that's not safe either. Probably it would be best to face the problem in a square manner and use the radioactivity, or leave it with individual reactors. Instead, we are working on putting all the reactors in one spot in Nevada. By now, Charlie Bowman has worried the people in Nevada sufficiently, so that won't happen either. I think I have done a very good job in not answering your question. Yes. You.
This is in the category of a question on any subject at all, and that is, in view of your background coming from Central Europe, do you have an opinion about what the United States should do with respect to Bosnia?
Well, I tell you, wherever I came from, when I was 6 years old, one of my earliest memories, I did not read the newspapers, but my parents did. And I heard the Crown Prince was murdered, but there will be no war. Then I asked, why? And I was explained, there is no reason that there should be war. Well, if there is no reason, why say that there will be no war? The question went unanswered. Bosnia has been a problem for a very long time. I think that one thing we might try is to use technical developments more appropriate to Bosnia. One possibility, again due to people working with my good friend Lowell on his good ideas, find the path of a bullet by passive means. The bullet gets hot. It radiates in the infrared. Too weak to see over the background. But you feed it into a computer and you look specifically for radiation with a rapidly moving source. You could find out where the bullet came at the moment it arrives. In Sarajevo there was a bombing of a central market. We did not know from where it came. If you know precisely at once where it came from, you might automatically shoot back, and you might make sniping a suicidal action. I'm not telling you that appropriate weapons will solve the problem, but I do believe that appropriate weapons in the hands of those who want peace may help in solving the problem. I agree with you. Your implied answer. There is no simple answer, and that is certainly borne out by everything the American government or all the wise people in Central Europe has so far done. Any other question?
What is your assessment of the cold fusion attack?
Cold fusion. You know, I liked the idea and got at once very sick, not necessarily cause and effect. Within a week, I was on the operating table, and the anesthesiologist came in and said, Professor Teller, what about cold fusion? And I said to him, I'm in trouble. You get me out of trouble, and I will tell you about cold fusion. Well, you know what? He got me out of trouble. And in a week he was back asking me about cold fusion. I still could not answer. But I will answer you. From everything I heard so far, cold fusion may be a bunch of mistakes. It may be a bunch of phenomena that are not mistakes, but release of energies that are accumulating in the surface of dense metals. And in that sense, it might be quite amusing. One thing is very probable. It is not fusion. And another thing that is certain, it is not a usable big-scale energy source. Any other question?
What about hot fusion?
Hot fusion.
Yes, the little one.
NIF.
Why doesn't that ever come?
National Ignition Facility. In Livermore, we are planning not just one laser, but 192 lasers. Together, they make in one pulse, lasting a billionth of a second, 2 million joule energy. We can get it done in 5 years for about a little more than $1 billion. Now, when we get that done, then all these lasers working together, occupying a volume about as big as this room, we can concentrate all of them into a little capsule as big as the top of my thumb, and make that capsule implode until it is of microscopic size. And we believe, and I believe, and I think I can prove it, that that will make real fusion. Now, can it release energy? Yes, at a price. Because in order to make it, you have to destroy this little capsule. And to make enough energy, we have been planning to send in one after the other 5 such fusion capsules per second, like this, like the way I'm drumming my fingers, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in order to make it economic, one capsule must not cost more than 30 cents. But these capsules are not completely simple. They must be very smooth so that they collect without distorting their surfaces too much. It will work. Whether it will give economic energy is a very different question. But if it works, we can not only make fusion, we can put into an unusual compressed state any kind of material, and thereby begin to explore a new kind of physics, which so far could be approached only with nuclear explosions. This could do much more of it, and much more cheaply. We can do fusion, we can do many other things. What I'm not sure is that we can do is make money. You have another question?
In the same vein, what is your opinion of some of the...
On what?
On some of the alternative fission reactors that have been proposed, like Robert Bazard's, was it the Rigatron and the Ligma reactor, these things we hear about from time to time.
The French have very good reactors. I myself am advocating reactors deep underground, as I have already described it to you. I think reactors should be pursued. I believe that they will come the moment we really begin to suffer from the lights going out all the time. And I would like to make one more general question. Of course, this group of people have been very familiar with the opinions of one of our great friends. I think he was the first one to get the prize that Lowell got today, Peter Beckman. Have you heard of the 3 great heresies that he was talking about? This century has known 3 great heresies. One brown, one red, one green. We cannot make reactors because of the green heresy. I think that both in connection with ozone, with temperature increase, with our failure to use the great discoveries on DNA for really improving agriculture. All of these are related to the scare made by the atomic bomb. Radioactivity made it fashionable to be scared, and now we practice becoming scared of almost anything. We'll make reactors when you persuade people not to be scared. Now, I have one complaint. I did not get any question from a young lady. Yes, ma'am. Your question.
I just think that your invention is probably one of the reasons I'm here, so I want to thank you for inventing the bomb first. That's it.
What's the question?
Just a thank you.
Well, may I say, I feel a little more comfortable now. And I must say, you are a group of people who have the courage and the diligence to look into unpopular questions. I think you need more power, more information, more success, and all of us need you. Thank you very much, both in my own name, in the name of Peter Beckman, in the name of Lowell Wood, in the name of all of us who have been working with you and who hope that you will ever be more successful. Good night.